What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Talk Talks the Grid. Today, we are joined with a new face. Welcome, Liam, to our team, to our little round of people discussing topics. I hope you will have a great time. Today's topic is pretty spicy, I would say. I mean, it could be pretty spicy. We don't know yet. Let's see where this goes. So today, we are going to discuss the whole Mercedes Red Bull situation, the whole rivalry, what we see is going on, what we expect maybe, but also like our personal views probably on the whole front wing, rear wing fights that are going on. So let's just kick it off with that. How are we feeling about the whole situation with them trying to constantly try to make the other one look bad? Because it's always like, oh, Mercedes is going to protest this, and then Red Bull is going to protest that. How are we feeling about this? Is this a necessary thing? Is it a big show, or like what are you guys' instant thoughts, like right off the bat? What do you say? What do you see?
I feel like this season there's been a bit too much in terms of regulations. Like it feels like every week they're doing something else to limit one team or the other. By the start of the season, obviously, Mercedes were like behind because of the raking situation, and then they've changed the front wings and the rear wings, and then there's this whole thing with this is obviously with the FIA as well, not just the teams, but with pit stops and making them longer. It feels like every week they're doing something to slow, kind of to a point, both of the teams down. Currently, it seems more Red Bull focused.
With the to and froing of the rear wings and the front wings, I think it's a natural thing with competition. I think no matter what sport you're in, I think everyone's going to want to get an edge. I think this is the first year Mercedes have felt very threatened by a team probably since Ferrari back in 2017. So I think it's natural. Not that I agree with it or anything like that. I think they should both do the talking on track instead of trying to throw each other under the bus, etc. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a lot to talk about when it's not a race weekend or whatever. There's always something going on. So, yeah.
I mean, I work with children, and and it's like the older, preschool age, and they're constantly coming up to me like, such and such have got this, such and such did this, and that's literally what it sounds like. That is what is going on in the Mercedes Red Bull garages behind the scenes. Like, I just think it's a little bit childish. I agree, like, whatever happens on track, keep it there. Like, you don't need to go behind and bitch about other teams.
It's very much a team principle issue, I think, at the moment. Like, the drivers seem to all get on really well, and Max and Lewis have a lot of respect, it seems, for each other. Whereas the team principles just, honestly, it is like watching a fight between 2 3-year-olds every weekend.
But don't you guys think, I mean, I personally can only watch the German Sky Sports commentary. Shout outs to those guys. But what I'm wondering is how much of the whole drama actually comes from the media. Because we all know that making an interview with Toto Wolff after a race, they will always ask about that Red Bull fight. And the other way around, they will always ask Christian Horner about, oh, what is Mercedes up to these days? And what I'm thinking is, sure, it's a competition, and each of them wants to win. If they wouldn't want to win, why would they be there? But I have a feeling, especially also with Drive to Survive, I'm actually scared of the season because this fight is going to be crazy compared to the reality that we're seeing right now, right? I think we're all expecting like fire and burning houses and everything. But do you guys think that the media actually plays a huge part in the way that this rivalry is shown off? And is it something that maybe even works in a positive way in a sense of promotion for both teams?
I don't think in terms of like the rivalry, I don't think that like Sky Sports does that so much. Like, I think we're pretty fact. Like they just kind of tell us what they know. But I do wonder whether like Toto and Christian kind of like play it up a little bit, like for the cameras, like say things that they know, like, do you know what I mean? More than it being the media, it's just that they are there to put on a little bit of a show, like for Formula One, which is what it's becoming pretty much.
Yeah, it's very much tit for tat, I'd say, because I think it was after the race in the class today, they had Toto and Christian stood together with two microphones, and absolutely nothing bad was said about each other. But you can bet if it was the other way around and they were interviewed separately, that there would be a couple of words thrown in there and a couple of statements to get the other one riled up. So I think in a way it is definitely played up for the cameras. I think Sky Sports hype it up a little bit because in previous years they haven't really been able to hype it up because it's been Lewis domination the whole time pretty much since the Rosberg days. So I think in a sense Sky Sports are playing on it slightly, but you'd expect them to with a title fight, and it is a title fight that we've all been waiting for as well. So
yeah, I definitely agree on that one. I think this year we find ourselves in a very new situation when it comes to that, because it's actually the first time that Red Bull is competitive compared to the Mercedes in a like more constant way. I mean, we have seen Max win races before. It's not like this is the first time, but the consistency that this team has been showing is definitely something to look at. Just for you guys' knowledge and time frames, we are on the Thursday before the second Austria race right now, okay? So in case we don't mention something that you guys expect us to mention, we can't know that yet because we can't look into the future. But I think we have seen in the first Austrian race already that Mercedes is struggling to keep up with some of the things that Red Bull have been working on. I don't know. I feel like Lewis has this very strong personality, this very, very strong mindset. But do we think that this whole thing with Max, that he actually is coming for his spot, his spot in the championship, I mean, do we think that maybe this is also something that Lewis has to fight with psychologically? Because so far, let's be real, there has not really been anyone who can contest him on anything. But now here is Max doing that. Could that also play a part in like Lewis maybe being a bit more under pressure than he used to be?
It's hard to know with Lewis because we know in the past, things like with his tyres, when he says his tyres are going and then he wins by absolute miles, we're used to Lewis saying one thing and doing another. But I feel like he's being a bit more genuine this season in that they don't know what the problem is. They don't know why they can't seem to keep up. And maybe, again, they're just trying to make a fight for later in the season and do whatever. But I would, it seems like it's gone on for too many weeks in a row to say that they are, on par and they're just doing it because they can. So, it's really hard to know what they're thinking.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not so sure. Like, he's pretty cool as a cucumber. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's pretty chill. Like, and he's been racing long enough to, to have had that mentality like down to a T. Like, he knows not to let anything rattle him. And I'm sure there are times, and that you've seen it from every driver, that when they're in the car that they get wound up at something. And I'm sure that probably happens. But on a whole, I don't think that he would. I don't think that is going to affect his chance at winning the championship. Let's say that.
I think also he's had experience as a rookie with a very fast Fernando Alonso. He's also had Nico Rosberg from 2013 onwards, and I think that 3-year period was probably the making of him as a world champion and as a driver as well. Obviously, had to deal with the war of words with Nico, obviously with the whole Monaco shenanigans. The contact in Belgium and everything from then on, really. It's always been, this atmosphere in that team didn't really feel the same after that. So I think he, in a way, he's conditioned to it. And I don't think that Max is going to get into his head at all, because he's had plenty of experience. And at the end of the day, if Lewis knows if he can beat Bottas every race and drive that car to the limit and finish second and beat Perez, that's at the moment, that's where they are. So I don't think he'll have any issues.
I think so too. But I mean, I've always been wondering a bit, like for myself personally, does it get boring to win every race? You know, does it get boring to be in a position where you are just so dominant that there is no competition for you on the track? Maybe secretly he actually enjoys to have a bit of a racing action going
I
on.
don't think it's even a secret. He's come out and said it, that he's really enjoying the fight.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he would enjoy winning too, because who doesn't like to win every week? But he has openly said that he's enjoying this year a lot more because he's actually having to overtake and fight people for the first time in quite a while, really.
I think also the preparation for the season as well. I think Lewis is relentless in everything he does, whether it be racing, outside in his personal life. He in the gym, you can tell he puts the hours in. So he would want to win every single race, and you can tell sometimes when he comes second, it will hurt. Obviously not. I don't think it hurts now as much as it would have done maybe a few years ago. But at the end of the day, I think racing drivers are built to win. So I think anything less is a bit of a disappointment.
Do we think that maybe Mercedes didn't expect to have any serious competition this year? Because we have seen them not going that far with their developments if we look back at the street circuits that we have been racing on. But Red Bull definitely put an effort into, you know, developing their car in that direction, and we saw them being very dominant. So do we think Mercedes got a bit surprised by the fact that Red Bull is as competitive as they are right now?
I think that could be a possibility. Like, were they just too comfortable? Like, were they just thinking, you know, like, we've done this now plenty of times, so it's just going to be another one of those years to get them through until next year when all the regulations come in? Or is it just that they are so focused on developing the car and things for next year that they were just like we don't need to find that
whole conversation, like, because it's all the teams have done slightly different things regarding next year, but ultimately Red Bull are also to a point having to focus on next year. So the Mercedes argument of, oh, well, we're focusing on next year and they're upgrading this year, yes, is true, but only to a point. I do think they were slightly caught off guard, but partly because I think everyone was a bit, because, you know, as long as I've been watching, it's been, well, for a long time at least, it's been Mercedes on top all the time, and it's a question of who of the Mercedes drivers, not if Mercedes drivers are going to even be on the podium. So I think, you know, that's a new thing for everybody, including the team.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think they were definitely surprised. I think they must have had an inkling at the back end of last year when Red Bull won the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which isn't usually a track where they go well at. Mm-hmm. So I think they must have been thinking at that point. And then when they got to winter testing, I'd have hated to have been in those meetings trying to work out why they're so quick, because Red Bull looked like they were near on a second ahead of everyone else. So I think they've done well, in a sense, Mercedes, to get back to where they were. Obviously, they won in Portimao. Definitely done well to get back to where they are. Obviously, they're not where they want to be. We've seen that from last weekend. I think, in a way, they have to kind of concentrate on next year now, because if they put all their strength and all their resources into the rest of this year, then that's an extra championship, fair enough. But next year, with the change of regulations and the continuity of the regulations the year after, are they going to struggle then to keep up with everyone else? And it's sort of one step forward, two steps back in a way. So I think they're making the right decision in the way they're not going to be, I think I'm right in saying they're not going to develop anymore this year. So I think they've made the right decision, but definitely they were caught off guard, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also very interesting to see. I mean, the last champion that Red Bull had was by then the youngest champion. And I think they're trying to go for a second take at that one. You know, they're investing a lot into Max, which has been working very well so far. So good job, guys. But I think it's probably a very, very big deal for Red Bull. Like very, very, probably maybe a bigger deal than it is for Mercedes in case they lose this one championship. I think there is a lot more on the line for Red Bull to finally be able to actually compete with Mercedes in this case. And we have a huge episode talking about the curse of the second Red Bull seat. In case you guys haven't seen that one, definitely go check it out for some interesting opinions. But I think what we're seeing right now as well is that Checo is actually doing pretty well in the car as well. And Red Bull have not only developed their car, they have developed as a team. They have developed in a sense of strategies. What we saw with that strategy the past few weekends was great. And I think that is maybe even a way where Red Bull outplays Mercedes right now. So do we consider the strategies a big deal in this, or is it more like, the main discussion is always, oh, Mercedes have the best car? I don't think they have anymore. I think there are other things that come into the mix. So do we think that strategy plays a role, or is it still only the car that matters in this case?
Not so much strategy, but I actually want to touch on like Checo and Valtteri, because yes, Max and Lewis are the head of the teams, but it's a team. It's not, it's not just those drivers. And I think Checo has played a massive part in why Red Bull are where they are, because last year Valtteri and Max weren't that off for like podiums. Like I can't remember exactly what was in it between them, but obviously Max had a few like DNFs and stuff last year, whereas this year he's actually kept his head a little bit better. But so far, I'll say so far.
You just jinxed it. I can't really see him DNFing next race.
But yeah, I think obviously we are seeing the fall of Valtteri Bottas as well. So I don't think having him as a teammate is helping Mercedes at the moment. If there was somebody else in that car, would they keep their like championship? I don't know. It's hard to say, but I think the second teammate is like playing a massive part in that constructor right now.
I think to a point strategy does come into that though. Like if you remember, which one was I? Possibly France. I think it was France. When Valtteri said, I told you this would be a two-stop and none of you listened to me.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes. I feel like Valtteri is getting a bit of a bad rap this year. And it's not always been his fault. He's had a very unlucky year as well. But Mercedes essentially in quite a few of the races this year have made just minor strategy decisions that have completely changed the course of a race. Obviously, the most important one being in France. And that is, this year, that is the difference. The two cars are near on identical in terms of how they can perform quite often. One of them takes one session, one of them takes another. It's hard to know because Mercedes do different things that no one can work out.
I think also as well, it's Valtteri's been very happy to help the team in a way. Obviously help Lewis when Lewis has been in the position to be a champion. But I think this year, as we've seen in Spain, I don't know if the rumours are to be believed, George Russell will be in the seat next year. Obviously, that's still very much up in the air at the moment. So Valtteri, in a way, is driving for himself now. Obviously, he's still part of the team, but we saw in Spain when Lewis was on the faster strategy, and he wasn't just going to move out of the way for him, he was going to make him work for it. And maybe in seasons prior, we'd have seen Bottas go off the side of the track and let Lewis go. Also, Checo's doing a very, very good job, but I also think that's down to just the pure experience that he's got, especially with the tyres. He's notoriously good with looking after the tyres and going long and then being there at the end of the race, which is what Red Bull needs. Red Bull needs a second car to force Mercedes' hand, because they've had it too easy in the past where they've had Lewis out front, Max behind, Valtteri in third, and maybe Alex in fifth or sixth, maybe a few seconds off or whatever, but they've not had the option to chuck a wild card in there and maybe go for a different set of tyres and push Mercedes into making the mistakes that we are seeing this year.
I agree. I also think that a massive fact is that Checo just keeps Bottas under pressure. You know, it's like he can't just drive away and be like, you know, I'm gonna keep you safe, Lewis. You keep driving, I keep you safe from behind here. No, that's not how it works, because Checo is coming for you. And I think that actually plays a bigger part than we see like at first sight, because it's not like Valtteri can now just drive and, you know, keep everyone else behind. He's actually under pressure. He actually needs to look at his own strategy and his own race, and cannot only, you know, work towards someone else's success, which I think is very interesting. Obviously, the whole Valtteri Bottas, George Russell, Mercedes seat discussion will come up over and over and over again until we finally have an answer to that one. On German television, Toto Wolff was very cryptic about it. Honestly, he was just like, it sounded pretty safe that, you know, Lewis will be taking it on for another season. That's the vibe that I was getting. But when it came to Valtteri, it was, you know, because they always ask about it, he was kind of like, yeah, we are in discussions. Nothing has changed in our decision process. And I'm like, but what is your decision process?
Yeah, he's been exactly the same on British TV. He's been like, well,
yeah, but
it will be decided when it's decided, and you will know when we announce it. That is it.
So
I think we're all going a little bit crazy, like with like silly season, because you think like this time last year we found out some pretty big, like we knew that Seb was leaving, we knew that Carlos was going to Ferrari, we knew that Daniel was going to McLaren, like we knew it all. And now this year we're like, so what's happening? Can someone please give us some insight?
The crazy thing with this year's like driver changes and stuff is that there aren't that many of them, and therefore they're going to come really late. Like, you know, McLaren's already sorted. Alpine is pretty much, I think, should be already sorted, because both of them have contracts that go on longer than this year. You know, there are other teams obviously, but you know, Carlos and Charles are the same. There are lots of people not moving.
Yeah.
So we're waiting out for so few announcements this year.
I think that's a topic for on its own. You know, like we should definitely make an episode about silly season, about the feeder series and what those give towards the drivers market, because that is ultimately that's going to be interesting for the future of this fight as well, because whoever will sit in those cars will, you know, play a huge part in whether or not the rivalry can stay alive, or one team is just going to chow and, you know, drive away from everyone else. You don't know that yet. But let's just go back to this year's championship, the things we have seen so far. What do we think is going to happen? Who do we think has the upper hand in the end, both in like the drivers' championship, but also the constructors, of course, because that's a whole different thing. Because I personally can't make up my mind yet. I have my preferences, to say the least, but yeah, I want to know, guys, what you guys think. Are you sure, or are you struggling like me? What's the thought process in y'all's brains right now?
I feel like I can feel it in my old bones. Like I feel like it's gonna be Red Bull and Max. I don't know why. Like I can't explain it. I just have this feeling. I don't know. Maybe I've got some powers that I don't know about, but I just have this like just overcoming every week, like every week that they're just getting stronger. I feel like, and I don't know, Mercedes, not that they're going under, but like they look like they're struggling more and more, and whether they can pull that out of the bag and like be like, I just feel like they're going. Although I'm saying this now, I feel like they're going to prove me wrong and be like, bitch. Like
I think that's the point, though, is like. You truly, I don't think anyone could say 100%. Like right now, based on the season so far, you would say Red Bull and Max have it. But, you know, so much can happen that I don't think we'll find out until we get to the Middle East at the end of the season. I think who knows? Maybe Max will just keep winning every single week, but I just don't think you can predict anything yet. But I would say, if I had to guess, I'd say Max and Red Bull.
I think it's been shown in previous seasons that the Mercedes reliability-wise has been pretty much bulletproof with its engine, with its gearbox and everything. It's usually been the odd driver error here and there that has caused a DNF. On the other hand, with Red Bull, we've seen, obviously when Danny Rick was there, how many races he finished on the back end of the 2017 season, I don't know, because of that engine was just non-compliant the whole way through. So if Red Bull can get their reliability, I know they've been pretty good this year so far. If they can keep that going, then I see no reason why Max won't be champion and Red Bull won't win the constructors, because with Checo now, they've got someone that can back them up in the third places that they need. I do also think Mercedes still have something up their sleeve, because it's better to play your chances down now than to say, oh, I think we're still in it. It's better to under promise and over deliver. And I think if they over promised and under delivered, then a lot of questions would be asked about them. So I think it's easier for them to play it down and then see where it goes. So I think it'll be very close. I think it will go down to the last few races, maybe even the last race. But I think Red Bull might just edge it if they can keep the reliability there. Then they'll edge it.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree on that one. I think we have a very long season this year. We'll be going until the middle of December, which is insane, if you ask me. I mean, the calendar looks absolutely nuts. But I think expect the unexpected. If someone can do something, it has to be Mercedes, right? Because no one knows their car like Lewis knows that Merc. So I just feel like they won't rest until they get something else out of it. I mean, my personal thought process is like, please let Max win at least the Drivers' Championship, because I cannot have that Michael Schumacher record being completely broken, done and dusted. That would hurt me personally. But I think it's really, really hard. And I think actually that, I kind of hope that it ends up being a last minute decision making process, because when was the last time we actually had a season that was exciting until the very end? I mean, I love watching every race, no matter who's the champion, but it would be amazing to have like a championship deciding race at the end of the season and not in the middle of it, you know? But I actually agree with something Nell said that is very interesting, because we're going to a very, very different part of the world with very, very different, both expectations and necessities that are going to be needed. We will have different tire strategies, different temperatures. Let's see how the cars work under those conditions, what's going to happen there. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you guys who are watching so much for joining us talking about this topic. Definitely give us your thoughts. Write it down in the comments below, because I think people have very different opinions when it comes to this, and I'm sure we have missed some points that are very important. So, you know, give us your thought process down below. As always, don't forget to follow us on all our social media websites. The links are in the description below. And if you enjoyed this podcast, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for new content every week. And we see you again next week for another episode of Grid Talk Talks the Grid. Goodbye.